Oh, did you know this March I'm going to do something very interesting? This March will mark the 90th anniversary of King Kong. Since his debut in 1933, it has been a worldwide phenomenon. I know, but I'm going to review the 2005 film that I saw.
I like that one.
So, let me just guess that I want to review this movie as a special occasion to its 90th anniversary. As I understood that this was an epic adventure monster film that was co-written, produced, and directed by Peter Jackson, which was the 8th entry in the King Kong franchise and the second remake of the 1933 film of the same title. Although following the 1976 film, it stars Andy Serkis, Naomi Watts, Jack Black, and Adrian Brody, which is set in 1933, that follows the story of ambitious filmmaker Carl Denham, who hires his cast and hired ship crew to travel to the mysterious Skull Island, where they encounter prehistoric creatures and a legendary giant gorilla called King Kong, for whom they capture and take him to New York City to be put on Broadway. Even though development of the film started in 1995, Universal Pictures approached Peter Jackson to direct the remake of the 1933 film. Since he was a child, he has spent his time doing stop motion, focusing around King Kong by making stop motion films. Even though its several ape and giant monster related films were under production, around that time, before this happened, it was going to be like some sort of an interesting Indiana Jones ripoff, with the moment they would add tons of gunfights, tons of dogfights, as well as tons of savage natives fighting each other against against those sailors in a battle for supremacy when it comes to Kong battling the Carnotaurus. Although it was originally going to come out in the year 1998, it was shelved in 1997 due to the development of both Godzilla and Mighty Joe Young. Although its Indiana Jones-esque aspect would later be used for The Mummy 1999. Even though I might do this for March 1st tomorrow, I think I'll do this next month instead. Maybe on Wednesday. Even though Peter Jackson abandoned his project in favour of directing the Lord of the Rings film series, within the first 3 films that were all commercially successful, while he went back to doing this in 2003, where he could express interest in doing a new version of King Kong. Even though it was currently one of the most expensive films ever produced, despite being filmed in New Zealand from September 2004 to March 2005. When it first premiered on December 5th, 2005, it was theatrically released in New York City and garnered positive reviews that it scored on a budget of, $556.9 million on a budget of $207 million. Despite receiving positive reviews from critics, they praised it for the special effects, performances, and sense of spectacle and comparison to the 1933 original. Despite being raised on the criticism of its 3-hour runtime, it was a huge success, and lots of people consider it as the 5th highest grossing film of 2005, which sold 100 million DVD copies within its DVD sales upon its debut in March 2006 for the video release in the UK, and it won 3 Academy Awards for Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Video Effects, along with a tie-in video game that became a commercial success. Even though this movie has some interesting pros, I had some interesting ideas of what I can imagine. The pros in this movie that the chemistry between Naomi Watts and Adrian Brody is amazing. I adore both of them as star-crossed lovers, and I also adore the soundtrack, which is quite ridiculously brilliant. For some reason, ever since Jackson was only 12 years old, he had dedicated his life doing this. From this moment on, Howard Shore spending his time wanting to make a hard composition with the help of Sony Score and Stage and Tone AO that consists of a 108 piece orchestra with a 40-member choir, with a wild range of instruments being used, as well as Al Jolson's song, I'm Sitting on Top of the World, and Peggy Lee's Bye Bye Blackbird were used in that soundtrack. Even though the marketing campaign started in the summer of 2005, lots of people were in the hype for this upcomingly awesome movie. For the pros, but for the cons, Jack Black, however, his portrayal of Carl Denham is quite of a manipulator that you can imagine. As I can think of him that only a few things why Denham shows a lot of concern to express his safety concerns towards Driscoll and Darrow. I understood that they also added the V-Rex to replace the Carnotaurus, which didn't make sense that it belongs in Jurassic Park. Even though it is very similar to the one where Kong fought the T-Rex in the 1923 film, he ends up breaking a broken jaw while standing to beat his chest and roaring victoriously. It sounds like suitable for WWE, but it feels like the most dangerous game and Pirates of the Caribbean have given birth to this love child. Even though I loved everything to do with this movie, as I say, we blame Mighty Joe Young for doing this, so I understood that the climbing climax was quite embarrassing because of Kong getting shot to death by airplanes was done in the same way to what the 1923 film did to Kong on the Empire State Building, not including the 1976 film where Kong climbed on top of the Twin Towers even before they got destroyed by the airplanes that smashed both the buildings together on 9/11 for some reason. Even though it's quite heart-wrenching, I understood what I should give this movie. Mainly, as I understood, this movie is quite of a blast. Let me just say, I'd say I'd love to give this movie just a solidly decent 8.5 out of 10. Even though it's a well-done remake like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, despite its cons, as well as a really crazy chemistry between Kong and Darrow for some reason, it's quite heartbreaking, but also complicated to see some new dinosaurs being introduced in that 2005 film. And its central theme is, you should never bring a gorilla to a Broadway, or else you suffer the consequences of why the gorilla wants to be with a girl that he likes. It sounds like they could have gotten married and have children, but there was an alternate ending in that movie, in that video game tie-in of the movie, which was based on that 1996 ending. Although it involves around Driscoll piloting his biplane to shoot down the biplanes, Kong then would have to carry Darrow back to safety without dying, and then both Darrow and Driscoll, they decided to take Kong back to his island in safety and just for one piece. And with that out of the way, let me just say, this was fun for me doing this, but Word of God pretty much explains what happened to the 1986 film. It felt like an utter travesty to discover why its script never got made, why it was never produced, why was it cancelled in the first place. Although the script seemed unfinished, despite adding new material, eventually, this 1996 movie would later move on to be involved in another movie that I'm talking for next time. As I know I mentioned it earlier than ago, we're going to explain why I'm going to review The Mummy. As I know I am excited to see Mummies for some reason, the upcoming 2023 movie that is coming out on March 31st, 2023. I am hyped to be happy to see this in the UK at Cinema in my hometown Luton. As I promised for March 1st, I will review this movie and its sequels and spin-off, as well as the 2017 movie. But that'll be for next month, for Mummy Month. So, with that out of the way, I would say this was me, Sahel Karimullah, signing off. And if you would hit the like button, you could subscribe it to you now. So, cheerio everyone!